zoning appeals for the November 21st date. First item on our agenda is be called a meeting to order. We'd like to start off with prayer and pledge, so if you will, please stand for us. Prayer first.
Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to lead and direct our town. We ask that you would be with us, the other directors, and you would guide us, that you would be involved in everything that happens in the direction and leading of our town. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, fellas. Number 3, we have citizen comments. Mitch, any at this time?
None at this time.
Item number 4 is approval or correction of the minutes from the October 17th meeting. Those are in your packet. I have reviewed them, didn't see anything. Any updates or corrections?
All are in order.
All right, entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes.
Motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Minutes are approved. Number 5 is new business. Looks like we have 3 setback variances this month. We'll start off with Joyce Fauber.
This is a setback variance, a rear setback variance for an attached addition to the primary structure. The requested variance is for 10 feet, which would be a total of 10 feet away from the rear setback line. Property is zoned R3, medium density, single family residential, and is approximately 0.23 acres in size. Minimum yard requirements in an R3 zone for a rear setback is 20 feet. There is a 10-foot drainage easement in the rear of this property that would not affect the location placement of any attached structures due to the setback line being an additional 10 foot beyond the easement line. Applicant states that the covered awning that was present on the property was added approximately 18 years ago, and her general contractor notified her that a permit was pulled, when in fact no permit was actually pulled for this job. It wasn't until Codes did an inspection on this enclosure that she's recently been trying to work on getting that we realized this was not properly permitted back 18 years ago. Section 7.080D of the zoning ordinance details requirements for variances not involving special flood hazard areas, and they are as follow. Particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved that would result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from mere inconvenience if the strict application of this ordinance were carried out. Staff finds the lot does have a 10-foot drainage easement in the rear of the property, which should not affect the location of any attached structures. The lot is uniform in shape and size aside from that. Conditions upon which a petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. Staff finds that the lot does not have any features that differentiate it from any other lots within the R3 district due to its uniform shape and size. The variance will not authorize activities in a zoned district other than those permitted by this ordinance. Attached structures are allowed by right in the R3 zoning district but are to adhere to all applicable setbacks. Financial returns have not been identified as a reason for requesting this variance. The alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. The alleged hardship has not been created by the applicant. Applicant stated they were unaware of permits not being properly applied for when the structure was originally built. That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff finds the variance requested would provide the applicant with special privileges denied by the ordinance to other land, structures, or buildings in the R3 district due to no apparent hardship with shape of the land. The variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Staff finds the requested setback variance may be the minimum due to the structure already being present on site. The granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area. Staff finds the variance should not have any of the above effects. The proposed variance will not impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, substantially increase congestion in the public streets, increase danger of fire, endanger the public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values within the area. Staff finds this too would not have any of the above effects. Number 10 is not applicable in this instance. And staff does recognize that the applicant did not create the setback issue back when the original general contractor did not pull the permits. Had they pulled the appropriate permits when constructing the awning, the problem would have been found and addressed at that time. Aside from that, the lot is uniform in shape and size, and there appears to be no hardships present pertaining to this request as far as that is concerned. Have a couple pictures of the property. This is a picture that the applicant submitted of the attached awning that was currently being enclosed. The stake right here shows 10 foot back from the property line.
Is that the location of the easement, or is that?
That is in fact the easement and 10 foot off the property line. It's one and the same in
Okay,
this
but the
instance.
20-foot setback is the issue, right?
Yes,
Okay.
20 foot is the original for any attached structures.
So my point being, if we were to grant the variance, the building still would not be in the easement?
Easement, correct.
Okay.
So this is just an overhead shot. The structure back here shows that awning that is in discussion. And that is it.
All right. Thank you, sir. At this time, I'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request.
I will.
All right. If you please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. My name's Bill Beard, and my address is 434 Adeline Drive, Smyrna, Tennessee.
Thank you, Bill. So, looks like we've got a awning that's being enclosed. The awning was already there.
Correct.
And now we're going to enclose it.
That's what we'd like to do, yes.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of jumped out at me when I was looking at this is, although the lot is generally square and a 120-foot deep lot is pretty normal for an R3 district, the house seems to be placed kind of further back on the lot than in the middle, which makes the backyard about, I don't know, it looks like maybe 20 feet or so.
At the 20-foot setback line, there's about 2 feet of developable backyard,
Between
if they
it and the
impose the
house.
20 feet, right?
Gotcha.
So that's why we're asking for an extra 10.
So you're saying you take the 10-foot easement and the 10-foot property, or the total 20-foot setback,
Correct.
then that's really 30 feet from the property line, which means you have 2 feet, right?
No, it's 20 feet from the rear property
22
line.
feet. 22
okay.
feet to the house,
I got
that's
you.
what it
So
says
it's,
on
yeah, because it's 20 feet from the property line, not the
Right.
easement. So 22 feet to the house. Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions related to what you're seeing here, guys?
Well, I think they're answered. The awning has been there.
Right.
It has been, this is just an enclosure is what's brought this up.
Correct.
That awning's been there for 18 years.
And no one's ever complained about it, or to us, or to the city, as far as I know. And
I have my next door neighbors with me.
Yeah.
They don't have a problem.
Okay.
I've got signatures from people in the back office.
Yeah, that's, that, we do have, I'm just saying it so people can hear it. We do have, in our packet, we do have a, what's the word I'm looking for? Just-
Petition.
Petition, there we go. I just lost it. We do have a petition that's signed by about 21 or 22 folks. It seems to include 4 or 5 of the adjacent neighbors, both behind and on the side. So we did receive that as part of our packet. As far as I know, Mitch, was there any calls in it?
I had one, just a general inquiry, but that's about it.
Yeah, so no.
There have been no calls against it or anyone, okay.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Anyone else that would like to speak for or against the request? Not seeing anyone, we'll close the public hearing, reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion and motions. I agree with what the staff has found as far as the lot shape. I mean, generally 80 feet across. I think mine is 85. That's pretty standard. 120 foot deep is a little short. Mine's like 185, but still, it's pretty much a standard lot size. I think the placement of the house is as far back on that lot as it is. And then also just in general, the depth of the house is very large. The garage is in front, and then there's a covered portion in the back that's kind of added to the house. So the overall footprint of the house is a little larger, I think, than what a lot of houses would be with the accessories or the additions on the front and the back. So, kind of what we have, it is a pretty tight backyard.
Well, one thing we'll have to consider is reasonable use. I mean, just said this is not inside any of the 10-foot actual easement, correct? Not encroaching on anything there. And if you measure it off, it just said there's only 2 feet from the back of the house. That's completely unusable. There's 20 feet back there. So, I mean, I feel like there's some reason here. And obviously, from what we've heard today, this is a problem that was solved 18 years ago. It wasn't a problem. It's been there. And at that point, thought a permit was pulled. That's the way I'm hearing. Is that correct? And everything has been fine until just enclosing. It'd be different, I think, if we're trying to push it out into the easement or make it larger, but we're just enclosing something that's already been there.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I just feel it's reasonable based on the fact of how tight that lot is. There's only 2 feet in the back. You can't have anything back there. You couldn't actually stand in the back of the house without being into.
Turn
So
sideways.
I feel like it's reasonable, and there's, from what I'm hearing, and the fact that we thought it was an issue, so of course enclosing this was something she's doing because it's already been there. You're just closing it in.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a particular hardship in there or anything like that, but I feel like it is reasonable.
Is there a motion in there?
I'm really
I'm not
just
really sure what to do with that.
I'm kind of just discussing
I agree
my thoughts on it.
I agree with everything you're saying there. I think potentially the hardship is the placement or the extension of the house and the short amount of usable space because of the 2 feet essentially. I mean, essentially, you're right. You really couldn't do anything off of the back of that house without a variance, no matter what you tried to do. Even if it wasn't a cover that's already there, if they were trying to build the cover today, they would have to have this variance because pretty much everything in that backyard is encroaching on the setback. So I agree with you. I think reasonable use or to be reasonably used is the hardship that I think we could reference. It's not an irregular shaped yard, but it is a very small, short backyard, which I think creates the hardship.
Jeff, on making a motion on this, is reasonable use a reason to allow a variance? How would that be put? That we feel that the request is reasonable use of it, and there's no,
I think what I'm hearing you say is that due to the location of the structure on the property, which is probably due to the topography at one point, that there's not a reasonable use on the backside of that property, so that's why you're granting the variance.
So I think the key part I heard there is the reference to the topography. I did notice in one of the pictures that pretty much immediately behind the fence, the property seems to drop off pretty sharp.
And you have the drainage easement there.
Yeah, which is where the easement is, so I think the topography and the reasonable use is probably.
and do we use this as a hardship, the topography issue, or just due to it?
It's the lay of the land, or the size, structure of the lot, and if you choose to approve, that's what I would recommend, is that it's due to the size of the lot, which is what you've been discussing, and also where the structure's sitting, and in conjunction with the drainage easement, which is going to be a topography issue, because if it's drainage easement, it's got to be lower than the rest of them. If that's going to be your reason for granting the easement.
Okay. You got something in there?
Well, yeah, I would like to move to approve this.
Okay.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. Everything Jeff said.
Everything just said. Because I do see it's reasonable use. I do think there was a problem issue with the topography. I believe for that, I'd like to move to approve this request.
Okay. I think also just to amend that a little bit, also the fact that there is no opposition and that there is 21 or 22 residents that have all signed petitions, that they're also for it, which also helps. 18 years of being there, not only was there no opposition 18 years ago, there's still no opposition today. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second from the frog at the end. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval of the 10-foot variance, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you all. We'll go to number 2 on our agenda, which is Premier Quality Home Improvements variance request.
Oh, napkin slates.
This is a front setback variance for an addition to the principal structure on the side of the house. Requested variance is 8 foot, a total of 27 foot away from the front setback line along West Rockne Court. The property has 2 front setbacks, one on La Hinch and one on the cul-de-sac. The property is zoned R3, medium density residential, and is approximately 0.31 acres in size. Minimum yard requirements in R3 zone for a front setback is 35 feet. Section 7.080D of the zoning ordinance details requirements for variances not involving special flood hazard areas. The particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved that would result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from a mere inconvenience. Staff finds the lot has 2 front setbacks due to the cul-de-sac and what would normally be a side yard for the facing of this house. The cul-de-sac creates a constrained building envelope on this lot with the 2 front setbacks present. Conditions upon which petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. Staff finds the lot does have 2 front setbacks. In most circumstances, the residential structure does face the cul-de-sac side and not the main road as in this case. The variance will not authorize activity in a zone district other than those permitted by this ordinance. Building additions are allowed by right in the R3 zoning district, but are to adhere to all applicable setbacks. Financial returns have not been identified as a reason for requesting this variance. Alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. The construction of the road and original home were not created by the applicant. Granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff finds the variance requested should not provide the applicant with special privileges due to the above listed hardship. Variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Staff finds the requested setback variance may be the minimum to make the reasonable use of the structure for the proposed use. Granting the variance will not be detrimental to public welfare or interest to other property or improvements in the area. Staff finds this variance should not have any of the above effects. Proposed variance will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, substantially increase congestion in the public streets, increase the danger of fire, endanger public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values. Staff finds this requested variance should not have any of the above effects. Staff would recommend approval of this request due to the hardship of the 2 front setbacks and the cul-de-sac, which creates a uniquely shaped lot in this instance. Couple pictures of the property. This was out at the site looking at the house from La Hinch Lane. And then this is the property right here, and this is the side of the house in which they'd like to create the addition. And it's the cul-de-sac that creates the uniquely shaped lot. Just the plat of the piece of property outlining just a rough sketch of where the proposed addition would come out to on this piece of property. That's it.
It's, Mitch, what, I didn't see it in here, what exactly is this addition gonna be?
I had the same question.
It's a interior addition. I think it's an additional bedroom or
Oh,
2,
okay.
or bathroom area, just expansion of the house.
Okay. Yeah, it looked like it was,
Other side of the garage.
but yeah, that's what I was wondering, it's like, it looks like it's on the other side of the garage, which kinda made it a little odd. It's okay. All right, at this time, I'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals for anyone that'd like to speak for or against in a public hearing. Seeing no one in the audience, I will close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion. This is actually pretty typical request that we get with houses that have 2 corners, basically 35 feet on both sides. In this case, it's relatively small variance, 8 foot. There's still 27 feet from this property to the street, which is a lot more than a lot of room there still.
And it's
so
unique
pretty,
because it is a cul-de-sac, so it even,
yeah, it
takes
even makes
more
it
out of it,
worse,
right.
right? Because the cul-de-sac kind of bulges out, so it even comes closer to the house. So I don't think there's I think there's a clear hardship here with the road and the 2 front corners.
I agree.
In that case, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request due to the hardship of the 2 front setbacks and cul-de-sac creating a uniquely shaped lot.
We have a motion, we have a second.
A second.
We have another second from the frog. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. All right, this time I'm going to turn the meeting over to Phil. The next request, I will be abstaining from discussion. Thank you, Phil.
All right, Mitch, read the next setback variance request, please.
This is a side setback variance request for a detached garage which will be placed in the rear of the property. The requested variance is 4 foot, a total of 4 foot away from the side property line. Property is zoned R3, medium density, single family residential, approximately 0.34 acres in size. Minimum yard requirements in an R3 zone for any detached structures is 8 feet. There is a 20-foot drainage easement in the rear of the property which would affect the location placement of any detached structures. The applicant states that during the significant rainfall events, the water backs up onto their property due to natural topography and the drainage easement which is located at the lowest point. Placement of the garage closer to the property line would provide a sufficient space to ensure flooding of the structure would not occur during future rain events. Section 7.080D of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for variances not involving special flood hazard areas. Particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved that would result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from mere inconvenience. Staff finds the lot does have a 20-foot drainage easement, which is generally 10 feet larger than most drainage easements. The purpose of these easements is to provide an avenue for water to flow during rain events and may create additional flooding on neighboring properties if the rainfall is sufficient enough. The conditions upon which a petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. Staff finds the lot does have a drainage easement which prohibits locating of any detached structures within that easement. Variance will not authorize activities in a zone district other than permitted by this ordinance. Detached structures are allowed by right in the R3 zoning district, but are to adhere to all applicable setbacks. Property owner has not identified financial returns as a reason for requesting this variance. Alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. The alleged hardship has not been created by the applicant. The drainage easement has been in place since the creation of this subdivision. That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff finds the variance requested should not provide the applicant with special privileges. The variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Staff finds the requested setback variance may be the minimum to make the reasonable use of the structure for the proposed use during flooding and other portions of their property. The granting of the variance will not be detrimental to public welfare or interest to other property or improvements in the area. Staff finds this variance should not have any of the above effects. Proposed variance will not impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, substantially increase congestion to the public streets, increase the danger of fire, endanger the public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values. Staff finds the requested variance should not have any of the above effects. And with this, staff would recommend approval of the request due to the large drainage easement and additional periodic flooding which occurs in the rear property during significant rain events. Couple of pictures. This is the property, just an aerial shot the applicant submitted. Outlined here is a sketch of where that structure would be placed at. Couple of pictures submitted by the applicant as well during rain events, just showing how severe this flooding does get in their rear property. And this is just showing more of the flooding which encroaches on their backyard. That is all I have.
Thank you, Mitch. At this time, we'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open up a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak for or against this request. Seeing there's no one, we will close the public hearing. We're open for discussion. This request is fairly typical of what we do here, especially when there's an easement and we're looking for reasonable use. So after seeing the staff findings, everything seems to be right in order of what we found to find a hardship. Do I have a motion? Any discussion here from anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve due to the large drainage easement and additional periodic flooding which occurs in the rear.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion to approve and a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved. All right. Moving on to staff comments.
I have nothing this
None
morning.
at this time. We do have a board comment. They finally got that light fixed in front of me. That's been a challenge all meeting long, but I guess we look better. That's it. No requests. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn in a second.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.